This is CBC Vancouver News.
You're driving up to one municipality, the roads are absolutely perfectly clear, and you drive across the border and they're covered with snow and ice.
More calls for snow clearing coordination as the South Coast gets hit again. Left in massive pain, a Toronto man wants Vancouver police officers punished after they shot him in a case of mistaken identity.
Thinking that we will probably have some deficits in the coming years.
But before the red, billions to spend. What you can expect in tomorrow's BC budget. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in Kelowna, where RCMP say they have safely dismantled some kind of explosive after a suspicious object closed Highway 97. Mounties referred to it as an IED or improvised explosive device, but won't say more. An explosives disposal unit disabled the device sometime after 7 p.m. after someone spotted it on the highway south of Cooper Drive. Police say they are investigating who's responsible. The closure snarled traffic in the already busy city, but it has since reopened. Well, another day of winter weather and slower moving traffic across the South Coast as more snow blanketed the region. A special weather statement is still in effect for much of Metro Vancouver, and it could last through tomorrow morning's commute. That has some local leaders again calling for a regional plan to clearing the snow away. John Hernandez has more.
The snow came down just in time for the Monday afternoon commute, with anywhere from 2 to 4 centimeters expected in most of Metro Vancouver, though some could see as much as 10.
It feels like being back east. It feels like why I left back east, too.
The snowfall, which started over the weekend, has disrupted power in thousands of homes. Branches and trees along this stretch of road in Vancouver buckled under the weight. Scenes over the past few days, a reminder of what commuters in Metro Vancouver experienced just 2 months ago.
All I could think of was, I hope we're prepared this time. I hope it's not a repeat of what happened in November. That was horrific, and we can't go there again.
Surrey City Councillor Linda Annis was among drivers stuck on the roads for hours during the snowstorm on November 29th.
I left downtown Vancouver at 7:15 in the evening and did not get home till 5:45 the next morning. All the bridges were closed. There was no coordination of services. As a region, we need to do much better.
It remains to be seen if this snowfall will have a similar impact on the roads, but Annis and this new Westminster councillor say it's a reminder of the need for a regional snow summit. The goal would be to bring municipalities, the province, and transportation agencies together to analyze the breakdowns in Metro Vancouver in November so they don't happen again.
Let's hear from various organizations and individuals who have firsthand insight and knowledge as to what went wrong that night.
Under the current system, municipalities are responsible for clearing roads and debris within their borders, while the Ministry of Transportation takes care of major highways and bridges. Some wonder if a more coordinated regional snow response is the answer.
You know, you're driving up to one municipality, the roads are absolutely perfectly clear, and you drive across the border and they're covered with snow and ice. So is there any coordination that we could be doing to make sure that major arterials and roads are kept clear?
The ministry says it's had its own internal review of that snowstorm and has since improved its response, which it's carrying out during this latest blitz. John Hernandez, CBC News, New Westminster.
Commuters in the eastern part of the Fraser Valley, meanwhile, will be without bus service into tomorrow. Unionized workers behind the wheels have been without a contract since last spring. And as the CBC's Zara Premji shows us, that dispute has now led to strike action.
We'll never be defeated!
Striking and fighting for a better life for their families.
This contract really matters to me. I need to work longer split shift. I need to work evenings. I need to work weekends, overtime, all that.
We can't afford to be spend more time with the family. So we spend more time behind the wheel.
Members of the union representing transit operators in Abbotsford, Chilliwack and the surrounding region are on pause, striking for 2 days.
Because the employer is not listening. They're not listening to what our employees need. They need fair wages. They need pay equity with everybody else in the region. They do the same job. They should have the same pay. They also need a pension.
Handy Dart service is not affected, but anyone else needing a bus in the area is temporarily out of luck, including those on the popular bus route going from Chilliwack to Lougheed Station in Burnaby.
When you take on one of us, you take on all of us.
Some riders say they support the need to strike, but
definitely frustrating to not be able to transit because I rely on the bus. I don't have a car.
I'm just hoping that they'll get a fair wage and that all the passengers will be able to go on board again.
The union's latest contract expired in April 2020. Job action started earlier this month, with drivers refusing to accept rider fares as a means of taking action against their employer.
If we talk about salary, we are like 32% less than other drivers in BC.
U.S.-based employer First Transit tells CBC it has made a competitive and comprehensive offer that balances the needs of the rapidly growing region. The province says it has reached out to both parties to offer mediation services. The union and First Transit are slated to return to the bargaining table March 15th. Strikers, however, hope that conversation happens sooner as they consider whether future strike action is necessary. Zara Premji, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Kids under the age of 5 waiting to get their next COVID shot may have to wait a little longer. Canada's supply of infant Moderna vaccines expires next week. BC says it's following information from the federal government and expects a new shipment on April 11th. So if you have an appointment for your child between March 9th and April 10th for Moderna, you will need to rebook.
This is just part of the challenge with the procurement process. We've seen at different points, and what we're going to be doing is if anyone has an appointment, we're going to be contacting them through our call centers, letting them know and arranging for new appointments.
The province says the supply of infant Pfizer vaccine is still available. That immunization requires 3 shots, while Moderna takes 2. A Toronto man says he wants several Vancouver police officers punished after they shot him in a case of mistaken identity. A warning some people may find images in this next story a bit upsetting. Elijah Barnett says several officers surrounded him on Wednesday downtown, accusing him of being wanted on a Canada-wide warrant. Bennett says they then shot him twice. He says it was beanbags. Police say rubber bullets. Either way, Barnett was left with massive bruises and is afraid to be outside alone. Vancouver police say officers had good evidence a high-risk suspect, possibly armed with a gun, was in the area and mistook Barnett for him. They say they later arrested the right man. The force says senior brass have apologized to Barnett and support the Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner investigating. Barnett, for his part, wants the officers involved to be suspended, reprimanded, and banned from ever handling weapons again. Men wanted on a province-wide warrant for aggravated assault in an attack on a 93-year-old in Chinatown last year has now been arrested. On Saturday morning, Vancouver police found 52-year-old Henry Paul Weens. Police issued the warrant on February 15th. They say last October, the senior was knocked to the ground near Main and Pender Streets. The Surrey Police Union is raising concerns over a possible conflict of interest. The union claims Surrey City Councillor Rob Stutt voted to stop the city's transition from the RCMP to a municipal force without sharing that both his son and daughter work for the Mounties in Surrey. The union wants Stutt to recuse himself from decisions on the future of policing in the city. They're also formally asking the city's ethics commissioner to investigate. Stutt is a former RCMP investigator. Part of his campaign platform was to keep the Mounties in that city. You're going to find out how the province plans to spend your tax dollars tomorrow. BC's next budget is set to run into the red as the economy is expected to slow down. But as Mira Baines reports, billions will be spent before that.
BC's finance minister served up hot lunches to school kids in Langford, a sign that the upcoming provincial budget will focus on families.
Tomorrow I'll talk about how we're strengthening public health care throughout the province, how we're moving forward on a plan to continue delivering the housing that people need, how we'll keep people safe and healthy in their communities, and how our government will continue to help people with the costs they face every day.
But the province will be facing leaner times, so no new shoes for Budget Day, a tradition in previous years.
I didn't need new shoes, so I didn't buy any.
As David Eby hit his 100 days mark as premier, he continued his spending spree to use up a one-time $5.7 billion surplus before the end of March. It's money from higher personal and corporate income tax during a faster than expected economic recovery. Next year's budget is expected to take a hit from a slowing economy.
Even though we have a surplus this year, we believe that we're thinking that we will probably have some deficits in the coming years.
Still, there's speculation the BC government will announce a $1 billion plan to tackle mental health and addictions. The province has been grappling with some of the highest numbers of drug toxicity deaths in the country. The opposition BC Liberals say the province needs more than just announcements, but results. He says public safety needs to be more of a priority.
There's effectively no, measures in place to deal with those that are constant repeat offenders, sometimes violent offenders. And so they got to get a handle on that so the business isn't having to spend all their time and money, fixing broken glass, cleaning up graffiti.
The BC government has been focused on refreshing its housing strategy, so we'll be looking for how much money will be earmarked for that. The finance minister also delivered a few more hints, saying that rural communities will not be forgotten in this budget and that the people of Surrey, a fast-growing urban centre, will be happy with it. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
Still with budgets, the City of Vancouver is considering going back on its years-long commitment to pay workers a living wage after the benchmark rose sharply last year. Advocates say the decision would leave hundreds of non-unionized workers like cleaners, security guards, and maintenance staff without the raise they've come to expect and rely on every year. The city has been a certified living wage employer for more than 5 years now, meaning it's committed to paying its employees and contractors just over $24 an hour.
That it is tough and it is a really, really big increase this year. Hundreds of different businesses, nonprofits, municipalities have already stepped up and are paying the new higher living wage, including the City of Victoria, where actually their living wage is even higher than Vancouver. So we hope that the City of Vancouver can continue with their commitment, and it would be really, really disappointing if they walked back on it.
Advocates say the move could have a chilling effect for smaller businesses and cities weighing whether they can afford to pay a living wage at a time when the cost of living has risen sharply. Small businesses, meanwhile, are asking for a deadline extension on the federal government's pandemic loan program. The Canadian Emergency Business Account was introduced at the height of the pandemic to help small businesses forced to close or limit operations because of public health measures. The program offered interest-free loans backed by Ottawa. Nearly 900,000 businesses were approved and got just under $50 billion in loans. But so far, only a fraction of them have repaid the money they owe. Leaders in South Vancouver's Punjabi Market are very worried about some new proposed federal electoral boundary changes. They would split two pillars of the community into two different ridings. As Yasmin Gandam reports, they say the move would impact decades of history.
It's a visible example of our community here.
For Gulzar Nanda, the Punjabi Market is home. He has been working to revitalize the historic market district through the Punjabi Market Collective. He's worried new boundaries will split the local South Asian community in half, separating two community pillars, the Punjabi Market and the Khalsa Diwan Society Gurdwara.
I think two pivotal moments in history, the Punjabi Market being opened in May 1970, the very first business, and the Gurdwara was established a month before that. I mean, that type of visibility was important to South Asians, and it's the reason they settled here.
The Gurdwara and the Punjabi Market are currently located in the riding of Vancouver South. The new boundaries would split the Sunset neighborhood along Fraser Street. The Punjabi Market would go to Vancouver Arbutus, while the Gurdwara would be located in the Vancouver South riding.
Splitting up our community between Vancouver Arbutus and South Vancouver is just going to lead to a situation where our community's capacity is diminished.
Gulzar is also concerned about the needs of residents in the Punjabi Market neighborhood overlooked in the new riding, which includes the affluent neighborhoods of South Granville and Shaughnessy.
The demographics speak for themselves. I mean, there's a disparity in income levels. There's a disparity in terms of ethnicity. I think that, we want to be strong, our community, in terms of our political agency.
Herb Dhaliwal was the first South Asian member of cabinet who represented the federal riding of Vancouver South in the late 90s. He's disappointed by the proposal.
Punjabi Market was sort of the heart of the riding. going back to when I was elected in '93, and this whole area was very much a diversified, but had a lot of commonality in this area, stretching all the way to Knight Street, including the Ross Street, Gurdwara, and this was a very familiar area.
The report is currently under review in Parliament. Nanda says the collective is lobbying Ottawa to keep the ridings as they are. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
A popular Vancouver doctor is slated to sit down in conversation with Prince Harry.
Anybody who's read Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, will see many passages that are highly infused with trauma, multi-generationally and also personally for him.
The Duke of Sussex and addictions expert Dr. Gabor Mate will come together to talk mental health, including the impact of emotional loss and the possibilities of personal healing. That hour-long event will be hosted in an undisclosed location and will be live streamed. You can find more information if you want at princeharrymemoir.com.
As an institution, more can be done, and in fact, more has to be done.
A second chance for a controversial part of a Victoria museum. The Old Town exhibit in the Royal BC Museum is set to reopen with some adjustments. We'll tell you what next. Hello to everyone on our commercial-free live stream. A new poll suggests British Columbians are open to the idea of paying out of pocket to private clinics if it means faster access to some healthcare treatments. The Angus Reid Institute findings show 47% of British Columbians surveyed would support policies that allow people to pay in order to fast-track some surgeries and tests. Nationwide, though, 39% of Canadians are what Angus Reid calls public health purists who see little to no place for privatization. Another 28% say increasing privatization is necessary. The rest are somewhere in the middle. The CBC's Christine Birack has more.
Privatization is such a broad term that it's basically useless.
Technically, every doctor is a private contractor. The difference is who's providing the care and who's paying for it. In public hospitals, a knee replacement surgery costs the province around $10,000. In a private for-profit clinic, patients pay up to $28,000. But when a province pays for a surgery in a for-profit clinic, the amount is kept secret.
That's one of the challenges with understanding the relative costs in the for-profit sector is provincial governments routinely deny access to those contracts.
Ontario plans to pay for certain services in for-profit clinics, a model BC has used for years and has made changes to.
Cataract surgeries, they repatriated those services into the public sector because they were more expensive in the private for-profit sector.
The latest wait time data reveals 68% of patients in BC had their knee replacement surgery within 6 months. Ontario did better. Same goes for hip replacements.
There's a purpose for
doctors insist Ontario doesn't need more clinics.
You could do operations in this operating room. You don't need to open up new facilities.
And he says hospitals are only funded to do a specific number of surgeries per year. Governments could pay to schedule more on evenings or weekends, but the real issue is staffing.
We need people. The bottleneck right now is particularly nursing care.
But for-profit clinics recruit nurses from the same pool of workers. A nurse or doctor leaving for more money leads to longer wait times in hospitals.
I really worry that people don't completely understand the long-term impacts of some of these changes.
Studies of the UK and US have also shown private for-profit care can lead to slightly higher death rates.
So when we're looking at private financing in our system in multiple examples, it tends to have worse patient outcomes and tends to have more financial inefficiencies. So why would we be looking to expand that aspect of our existing health system?
The Angus Reid Institute survey shows political leanings tend to drive people's views on privatization, but most doctors insist there are cheaper, safer, faster ways of getting more Canadians the surgeries they need, including centralized wait lists that connect patients with the next available surgeon instead of sitting on one surgeon's waiting list. Christine Birack, CBC News, Toronto.
A controversial museum exhibit in Victoria is getting a second chance. The Old Town in the Royal BC Museum details 19th century European settler history. It closed in late 2021 as part of an effort to decolonize the space. But as Yasmin Ranea reports, it will reopen with some changes.
The structure of Old Town is still intact.
For the first time since November 2021, we are getting a look at a problematic exhibit at the Royal BC Museum, criticized for excluding the perspectives of Indigenous communities and other groups. It was shut down after calls from Indigenous leaders, but the exhibit, which details 19th century European settler history, will reopen after consultations with Indigenous communities.
We have a number of diverse communities in the province who've never had an opportunity to consistently be the one who tells their own story. And so this is an opportunity for us to take that approach.
Dubois says the goal is to represent less of a Eurocentric vision of provincial history, but she says the basic bones of Old Town will largely stay the same. Taking it all down would be an issue because of asbestos behind the walls.
There may be some adjustments based upon the stories that we tell inside each of the storefronts, but unless we're directed otherwise by public, by the government, etc., this is going to be the canvas that we're working with.
Engaging Indigenous communities is paramount, says a Métis librarian of reconciliation.
It's very clear that as an institution, more can be done, and in fact, more has to be done.
BC's tourism minister says she hopes the exhibit reopens sooner rather than later.
I see that if we wait too long, we're going to lose a lot of opportunities on the tourism side, for sure. But also, there's a lot of generations that have gone through this museum, and they want to bring their kids and grandkids back here.
But the head of the museum says remaking the exhibit will take time, with feedback being collected through the spring. A reopening date has not been set. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's a live shot of Cambie Street and City Hall. More snow today, and we're set for a bit more snow tomorrow. Johanna will have your BC-wide forecast after this.
We can't even get in to play the game, let alone wish for that sort of a thing.
The sort of thing Darlene Bly is wishing for is a home for herself and her husband. Jim and Darlene are in their early 30s and have been married 7 years. They've been looking for a house since September. They've got a $10,000 down payment and a pre-approved mortgage for $120,000. But every time they've found a house, they've lost out to someone else. This is one house Darlene and Jim bid on. The asking price was $115,000. They offered $106,000. They lost to a higher bidder, and they know they're not alone. Many young couples can't compete.
I've heard that a lot of places are being snapped up sight unseen and paid cash for out of the country. And how do you compete with that?
Prices are being pumped up because of an increased demand. Foreign buyers and an estimated 30,000 people have come here from other provinces. Take a look at what's happened to prices in the past 5 years. In the west side, the median price has doubled. And even in the east side, prices have gone up 50%. The solution for many first-time buyers is to move outside Vancouver. Realtor Brian Calder says the market moves in cycles, but there's always been a group that had to limit its expectations.
Say the bottom 25% that wished to afford housing that couldn't pay the prices in the East End 10 years ago, and they moved out further. And the same thing is happening.
According to Brian Calder and other real estate agents I spoke with, what's happening should come as no surprise. We've sold ourselves very effectively. A lot of people have moved to Vancouver from other parts of Canada, and an awful lot of property has been bought by offshore investors. So what we're seeing now is the price of success. Layla Paul, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 29th, join Leanne Young at the Zilly Cares Conversation on Care, a mental health fundraiser with special guests Dr. Gabor Mate and Dr. Mariam Zainadin. Get your tickets at zillycare.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Our BC-wide weather forecast now with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. Joe, let's review. We had weekend snow.
Check.
Fun to sled in, walk in, look at.
Check.
Be inside for. We had today snow.
Check.
A little less so, commuting, etc. What's next?
We've got the tonight snow.
The
Not
Tonight
the tonight
Snow.
show. The tonight
Sounds like a talk
snow.
show.
Exactly. Not going to rule that out. Yes, the tonight snow is continuing through to tomorrow morning. This is the latest snowmaker to hit the south coast. The pattern is the same. The air is not quite as cold. Our Arctic air mass has retreated, but the storm pattern continues to bring these swirling lows just into the south coast. So that counterclockwise motion is bringing the moisture back into the south coast. That's what brought those big flakes today, the snowfall warning to the east side of the island. And that low is going to continue to produce snow for Metro Vancouver overnight. Now, this isn't as big an event for Metro Vancouver as Saturday night, but it could make for additional slowness in your morning commute. So here's a look at the statements in place. Metro Vancouver earlier this afternoon added to the special weather statement for 2 to 10 centimeters by tomorrow afternoon. That's quite the range. I think we'll see heavier amounts to the north and east. The 2 centimeters is closer to the water and south. The east side of the island under that snowfall warning. And also looking at snowfall through the Sunshine Coast as well. So taking you through those snowfall totals, not as high of confidence in these snowfall totals as we had for the weekend, but you can see the gradient really is heavier towards the northeast, I should say. And this is ending tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow is not an entire day of snow. In fact, getting you through the forecast, here's tomorrow morning, tomorrow at noon, we start to see things lighten up. We could even get the sunshine for the back end of tomorrow as that low pressure system sinks off and we get a bit of a break. So this snow is in the morning, sunshine in the afternoon, Wednesday sunshine in the morning, Wednesday night snow. Dan, really the story this week is afternoon highs above the freezing mark and overnight lows that hit the freezing mark. So a couple more hits of snow this week.
I'm so disappointed that you didn't pack more in there.
Me too. Give me another 30 seconds. Yeah.
I don't think everyone agrees. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
That's your late news for Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That begins tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Have a good night.